As you can see, I've got quite a number of books. This is me when I was much younger. I was a senior in college at the time. That's my political mentor, Pete von Reichbauer, who was a state senator at the time. That was our governor at the time. When you're governor, I'm going to have to get a picture with you. It'll go prominently in here. And that actually right there, that picture. Remember, I said I worked in the first Bush White House. This was his vice president. I worked in the vice president of the United States office. Now, I worked there for 4 months. I didn't get paid. It's all the Diet Coke I could drink. I was an intern. All the Diet Coke I could drink, and I worked for free for 4 months in the White House. And that was on picture day. His name was Dan Quayle. And actually, I'm still in contact with him. He lives in Arizona now. You can see, before I was mayor, I was an attorney for King County. I was a King County prosecutor. So I worked for 16 years as a prosecutor, and those are some of the awards I received. As you can see, I'm very much into history. This actually is some just personal things. College graduation. You can see most of my interest in history is American political history, but European and Roman history as well is very much an interest. Those are some of just awards I received, and these are when I played college football at the University of Washington. This award right here is the only award voted on by the players at the University of Washington, the Huskies. And it was the first time it went to a non-scholarship player in the history of the program. Again, remember I told you I hurt my knee. I couldn't walk for 3 or 4 months. I came back and played 2 more years. So sometimes it's the setbacks in our life that really set the course for much bigger and better things.
I like your collection of books. I also love political, historical books.
Yeah, it's really. I'll tell you what's really.
But one of the
So
most.
you need to send him something from Africa. I don't.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a collection.
Yes.
Yeah, let me
Putting on
take
the
a
spot.
photo. So that one.
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah, I've really liked your collection, and one of the most important political story I've ever liked is how this guy was defeated immediately after winning the war.
Exactly. It's a
Yes,
great.
did it?
Yeah. Right. It is really astonishing. Yeah. Clement Attlee, right?
Yeah. You fight.
Yeah, but this
Oh,
picture was taken. This is taken, I think, when he made his comeback.
Yeah.
This is one. So I love this picture.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, he saved
Yeah.
the world
Then you
from
said,
tyranny.
"Oh."
It was gone. Right. But I think what happened is I think he took the eye off the ball, and I think he misunderstood the economic circumstance. You know, there's a more recent historical example of that.
Yeah.
George H.W. Bush, the first Bush president, after the Gulf War, his popularity was sitting at about 90%.
Can you photo this collection? Eh?
Yeah.
I don't
Hi-
know. I can't.
His
Camera. Yeah.
his popularity was sitting at the first Bush was
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
at 90% a year out. But what he did in January of 1992, a few months before that picture was taken,
Yeah.
there was a recession, there was an economic downturn, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
for him at the time,
Yeah.
he misjudged the political landscape. Now, some of these are really. You're going to get me talking about my books.
Yeah.
So, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
there are a couple of these books that you're absolutely, for a political person, are absolute must.
What
This-
happened? What happened? So
Yeah.
he has won the war.
Yeah.
He's 90%.
Right.
So then what happened?
Well, finances. I think he appeared. The problem is that he didn't come after it very hard his election, and the financial situation started to worsen. And the other thing is he appeared out of touch, and also he went back on a promise at the 1988 convention, of which this book focuses on.
Oh.
This is about all the candidates in the 1988 presidential race. I bought this book across the street from the White House. And this chronicles all the candidates in 1988. Probably one of the best books I've ever read. What happened is George H.W. Bush promised no new taxes.
Okay.
And he said the words, "Read my lips,"
Yeah.
in 1982. The problem is that when he got in, he ended up having to raise taxes. So his opponent really made it sound like he was untruthful to the public, and that's what happened. It turned, and he lost badly. And then the thing that happened in '92 was another Republican got in the race and split the Republican Party, just like what happened in 1912 with Teddy Roosevelt. And so when that split occurred, a Democrat came in, and that Democrat was Bill Clinton. So a couple of books here. This book, Team of Rivals,
Yeah.
it's an absolutely essential reading, and it details Abraham Lincoln's cabinet.
Yeah.
Now, when Abraham Lincoln was not supposed to be the president.
Yeah.
He was a one-term congressman,
Yeah.
12 years before, in 1848. But he was able to capture the nomination. He won the race. And what did he do? And this is actually a very key thing. All of these men were his competitors.
Yeah.
This guy right here, William Seward, was supposed to be the president. But he made him his Secretary of State. And he made Salmon B. Chase, this man, the Secretary of the Treasury. He made this person a person who hated him, the Secretary of War. So he had all these people that were his rivals, and he put as his cabinet members. And his chief political advisors are like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "If I put them all with me, their success will be my success." And it was a stroke of ultimate political genius. And ultimately, they all helped each other. And he was the first Republican, the first president to be reelected in 36 years. Actually, hold on for a second. It was 28 years. It was no president had been reelected since 1832. So it was 32 years. So no president had been reelected since Andrew Jackson had been reelected in 1832. So by the time you get to 1864, Lincoln was convinced that he was going to lose the 1864 election in the middle of the Civil War, which would have been disastrous. There would be two United States of America. The most important presidential election that ever happened in this country happened in 1864, and he won it. Then what was interesting, Grant, who started the Civil War, and I could talk all day, but
No, don't.
well, what's interesting is this Ron Chernow is really one of the great writers in America, and he actually wrote, his first book was all about Alexander Hamilton, which
Yeah.
is more at the beginning of the country. But Grant was a military man. When war broke out in 1861, he was unemployed. Well, he was unemployed, and then he got a job working in his father-in-law's store. He had been an officer in the army, but he had gotten out of the army, and he had tried everything, and he just couldn't make a run of it. War breaks out. He enlists. He becomes a brigadier general. He leads some troops in the western area, and within 3 years, he leads an army of 500,000 men. And then he is appointed the head of the Union Army, defeats Lee in Virginia at the Appomattox Courthouse, and 3 years later, he's the President of the United States. Within 7 years of being essentially ruined and unemployed, he is the President of the United States. It's one of the greatest rises of power in American history, if not world history. So Nixon's got a great story. Teddy Roosevelt is a great story. This is, again, all the candidates from the 1968 race. I'll tell you what a really good book is The Last Lion is absolutely indispensable. The Last Lion, all about Churchill, is absolutely required reading for anybody that wants to be in politics. And really, he saw what was coming and the danger, the storm that was rising in Germany. But I'll tell you what was fascinating that I read last year, which was really when that picture was taken, and about what happened in France, and about how Churchill saved his nation from what everybody considered to be impending invasion, and how they did it, and the shock and the surprise that everybody had. Much like the way Russia just unsuccessfully invaded Ukraine from multiple different ways. That's exactly what happened to France, and then what Churchill's concern was. Let's see. Oh, this is a book that there's two books here. Augustus is a very important read. Augustus was the first emperor, really the first emperor of Rome.
Yeah. Then
Um,
you can go-
And this is really very interesting. Obviously born as Octavian, and then Julius Caesar. Really, probably one of the most pivotal moments in world history when Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah. Yes, continue.
And
Yes.
and really, so what happened was Octavian. I mean, I won't say the whole story because it's a longer story.
Yeah.
But what happened ultimately is everybody's heard the name. Everybody's heard of Julius Caesar,
Yeah.
right? And everybody understands, But his nephew was Octavian, and that struggle really and that conflict of power ultimately. Julius Caesar was up in Gaul, which is modern day France. He got sideways with the Roman Senate. There was a breakdown there. It was all about a presidential election, or what they call consular elections, and his conflict with Pompey the Great, his former brother-in-law, and they had a triumvirate. One of the individuals passed away, and it was just Julius Caesar and Pompey. Civil war ensued, and then as Julius, it was illegal for a soldier to have soldiers in the city of Rome, and or even in the peninsula. So when he crossed the Rubicon,
Yeah.
the die was
Civil
killed.
War.
The Civil War,
Comments.
and so then down the road, he was eventually assassinated several years later, and eventually